Hi everyone and welcome to the 39th episode of Voice of Silence. My name is Kanikakush and I've been hosting these now for 39 episodes. And what I have discovered while talking to all my listeners is that we all have a very deep part of us, which is the silence in all of us. And I feel that very few of us are actually willing to acknowledge that silence because this is coming from the place of also mental health. I advocate mental health and I practice it too. We don't acknowledge it because it comes out in the loudest and harshest sometimes languages, and that makes us meet our demons. If, for the lack of a better word, we meet our demons and then we have to deal with them, which is why I think we choose not to speak to that silence. But that's the intent of Voice of Silence. And the next episode is going to be speaking about forgiveness. Now, the word forgiveness, in my opinion, is a very pregnant word which has a lot of meanings, can have a lot of meanings. And in my opinion, for me, forgiveness is freedom. But it may mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And my next guest, I have to say something about her too. She's been the biggest supporter of Voice of Silence in the past so many episodes. She's much younger to me, but maybe wiser in a lot of ways because this woman chooses to always work on herself and she looks at life from a very different lens, wants to keep working on herself, and is very, what can I say, articulate with her thoughts. So, without wasting any more time, let's welcome Jaahanvi Khurana, our 39th speaker on the Voice of Silence. Everybody, please, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much, Jaahanvi. It means the world to me that you're here. Like I said, you have been one of the biggest supporters. And I know that everybody here must be very curious to know about you. But before that, let's begin with a little tiny introduction about what you do right now. I also understand you've just been married about 2 years ago, and about your childhood, so that we lay a little foundation before we start.
Great. So, as a professional, I'm into talent and learning in an FMCG company. And beyond that, I think there are multiple aspects to my identity and to my life, which, I'm going to share. So, like you asked, something around my childhood. So, starting from the beginning, so I think everybody has a very different story of their childhood. Ours was so the childhood that I share with my sister. We it's it was it like highs and lows were there. It was not very pleasant. It had its own challenges, and now in hindsight, I understand a lot of things why there were those challenges. So we grew up, so it was my father's second marriage, and we had our um step siblings, and which is why we grew up in an environment where it was, so my mother had like chose to leave her job in a nursing space so that she can take care of both of us, which meant that the entire financial burden was on my father to take care of us. And now it was not just two of us, it was the other kids also that he had to support, which was very obvious would give rise to a lot of insecurities. And now I understand that why those troubled times were there, especially for my mother, why those insecurities were there, and how it reflected in our the day-to-day life. So yeah, we grew up in an environment where there was a lot of, where the bedrock of everything was a lot of insecurities, which resulted in a lot of tiffs between my parents. And we grew up in that. There were good times also, there were challenging times also. There were times that good things also happened in our school times, and a lot of things we didn't know will happen or not did happen. So there were financial ups and downs. So my father was into real estate, so there were ups and downs. So when there were good times also financially, there were times we were really struggling also. So that is how we've grown up in a childhood. And yeah, so we are a product of both me and my sister have grown up in that product of high level of insecurities. And then I think as we grew up and when we started to learned what harm it causes, then I think then things started to change and we both I think started to work on ourselves. So yeah, that's how it has been in the childhood.
What effect did the insecurities have on you as a child in school?
So I think even in my friendships, there was a lot of insecurities. I remember I used to do a lot of diary entries in my seventh, eighth standard from that time onwards, and I didn't even realize how those insecurities are turning into my like relationship with my friends also. But if my friends used to my best friends used to start talking to other friends, I would start feeling insecure. I remember in 10th standard, so I had my best friend, and when we've been, in the same class for last 4 5 years, and when her class shifted to another that day, so every day I used to write diary from like normal black or blue pen. That day wrote from red pen because I was so angry that and I felt like my world is going to change now that she's in a different section. So yeah, and yeah, that really reflected in I was so insecure if my friends would start my best friend would start talking to someone else. So yeah.
I remember you mentioning that even between you and your sister Sonia, who's here with us today, there was a certain amount of misunderstanding. Now, in hindsight, what have you understood about that? Like, what do you now understand why it was, and was it related to what you've just told me, or was it normal sibling rivalry? And can you actually distinguish between the two? I mean, are you going to? It happens, right?
Yeah.
Sibling rivalry is something that we casually say, but it can have so many colors, right? So, are you able to distinguish today, or it's colored?
I think I can distinguish one thing very clearly, that both of us, like I said, we both were struggling we both were in the same boat. And the only difference in perspective was I was a younger child and she was the elder child. And I think that has its own set of challenges. I saw from a lens of a younger child, and she saw it from a different side. And I think what happened was I think in a given circumstance, nothing better could, we are kids, right? We are understanding the world. We are still trying to make meaning. We don't know, is there something that we need to change? So we're both trying to really figure it out on the go. So I don't think there was anything rivalry as such. But yes, now that I see our relationship, how it has grown after a lot of fights, after a lot of misunderstanding, both verbal, physical, whatever fights you say, like we've had in, like, of course, we both used to see WWE, and, we used to replicate that also.
I like the rest of us, yeah, all of us,
Yeah.
grown up with the trump cards and things,
And and I have a broken tooth thanks to it.
Okay.
So I think we like that was all childhood, and I think now the kind of relationship we share is very beautiful because we both have chosen to work on ourselves very, very consciously. We both have chosen to let go of everything that has made our past and start afresh. I think that has given a very different um, mode basically to our journey of as siblings.
So basically, you made a conscious choice, is what you're saying. And when you say conscious choice, does this have the forgiveness, the tone of forgiveness in it when you chose to take this conscious choice? Because I remember you saying, I don't know what age you were at, but you said that, Kanika, I chose then that before assuming, I must ask.
Yeah.
When did this understanding came? This is a very beautiful quote actually from you. It could be the foundation to so many relationships.
Yeah.
So how did this understanding come, and was the idea of forgiveness already implanted in your head, or did it come after?
I think the value of forgiveness came after that, much after that. But this instance of asking before assuming came in. So, like I said, we had a lot of financial ups and downs. So, because we had seen a lot of downs also, so I assumed that a lot of things will not happen for me. So, for example, in school we had this trip that was, school trips that used to happen, and Goa was planned for us in, I think, sixth standard. And I assumed that we don't have enough money, like, I can't ask my parents because it'll be a struggle. So I gave, my friends used to ask me that why are you not coming with us. So I gave a very, I made up a story that, something is there and I can't come. I never even asked my parents if it is possible. Years later, when some years later, because my father saw my knack for dancing, so he enrolled me for Shamakdar classes. And that's when I understood ki, okay, some things can be done. It's like outside school and outside the normal functioning of our home, there are certain hobbies, there are certain things which can be fulfilled. I don't know how our parents are managing finances, so I should rather ask. So then after that, when we had another trip in 11th standard, we had a trip for Udaipur. So I asked my parents, and they, like, it was very easy. I was like, okay. I never knew that, like, it would be easy. There would be times and it'll be easy also, so I should ask. That's when that is when the first understanding came in, that um, before assuming, ask. Assuming based on your past, understanding, and past, everything that has happened in the past. So context changes. So you need to ask. That's when the first time it came in, and I think recently, I think it got reiterated when, when me and my sister, we were having a very deep conversation, and again I realized that I had assumed a lot of things, about her, based on everything, my past understanding. So I realized that I should rather ask, before assuming that what is, like, happening in her life or what is happening between us. Rather ask, challenge your assumptions. So I think that is something that got reflected again.
And this is a little diversion for me also to understand. You said ask. You said ask what's going on in your life. Do you think it also applies to when people are having an altercation or an argument? Is it a good idea to also, maybe not in the heat of the moment, but when the argument is over, is with loved ones mostly? Do you think it's a good idea to also ask, okay, you know what, you said this to me, then ask instead of assume, because after assumption is the hurt, after the
Yeah.
hurt is the pain, then all the emotions
Yeah.
that are our
Yeah.
best friends.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea to ask, you said this to me, what did it mean? You think it's a good idea?
Absolutely, because
That's a learning.
we understand and make meaning of things based on our perceptions.
Yes.
And maybe the other person means really different thing.
Yeah.
And maybe in the heat of the moment, we are not in that state where we'll ask, but like you said, when things cool down, really ask. Like, I think make it a habit to ask, because it will not come very naturally to us.
Yeah.
Very naturally is like, we assume based on our perception,
Yeah.
this is what they mean, and they're always like that. But I think make it a very conscious habit of asking. I think that really turns around a lot of things, and you're able to really, I think, nourish and nurture your relationships if you really get into the habit of asking, especially before you are jumping onto conclusions and making judgments based on a certain situation, based on a certain argument or a conversation.
Jaahanvi, tell me something. Whatever you just said, also then, do you think it's easy for people to ask? Don't you think a lot of times in your experience, in your life experience, and in your career and relationships, have you noticed that not everybody is even willing to take this step to ask?
Yeah.
And we'd much rather just assume and sit with our assumptions. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I think it took a lot of conscious work for me to
Yes.
build that habit.
Yeah.
I think so. This phrase 2 years back when it came to me, be curious. So I really started to think that how can I really apply it in my life on a daily basis, to be curious, and not just from the aspect of how world works, but also how your relationships work. How people think, and be curious to understand others. I think as long as you can really build that value in yourself, to be curious, to know how people think, why they think, what makes them think like this, what makes them do what they're doing, I think it will really solve a lot of things for you. And the ultimate thing is that you will find yourself in a lot of peace.
Yeah.
So as a selfish thing also be curious, because it will do so much good to you. So if you have that strong self-love, be curious.
Be curious. So, do you think from being curious is where forgiveness kind of follows automatically because there is an understanding? Is that the line? Is that the path that maybe your thought process took?
Yeah.
Because you were curious, therefore you understood something, and therefore it was easier to choose the path of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Is that how it worked with you, or was there any other way?
Yeah, so it kind of interlinked, and I'll also share how the path of forgiveness for the first time actually came in my life. Uh, so during high school time only, I was, of course, was in a relationship also, and so the person I was in relationship, we broke up, then we again patched up, and I don't know from where it was coming. Again, I did not know. I assumed certain things, and even if I didn't, so the second time when we broke up, things were not working out. Second time when we broke up, it was his call to move out of the relationship, and I just couldn't understand why he's moving out, because for me, from the perspective, from the lens I was seeing, it was fine. I couldn't understand, and the reason that the person was giving was just not matching. I just didn't believe it. So that time again, I didn't assume because I didn't have anything to assume. I didn't know what is actually happening. Year and a half later, the person actually, after breaking up, we kind of reconnected, just reconnected, not from the perspective of getting back together, but reconnected. And that's when and why we also reconnected was because I had a lot of anger built in me, because I didn't know why. I knew that there was something else that was there, and I knew that there's something that is not known to me is happening, and that anger had built up. So much of resentment was there within me, and one day I had a dream that I was chasing this person, this ex-boyfriend of mine, with a knife to kill him. I literally had that dream. And when I woke up, I realized it was so not me. Like, I can't have this dream. How can I be dreaming of killing somebody? And that's when I realized, oh shit, I have so much of anger built in me for that person that it is causing problem to me. I don't know if it is causing problem to him or not. And now it doesn't really matter because it's causing bigger problem to me. And that is the first time I, called up that person 1.5 years later to tell, I forgive you. Whatever the reason being, I just forgive you. Because if I don't forgive you, I am doing something wrong with myself that I can't. And hence I forgive you. And I'm going to move on. I don't care now anymore, because if I care, I'll have such dreams and that will cause a bigger problem to me. That is the first time I realized that it's so significant, so important to forgive and move on. And when I did that, after a while, that person could actually come up and tell me the real reason of breaking up, which is that he had cheated on me. So, and hence he couldn't go along. And that time, when he told me, I was like, I think if I wouldn't have forgiven him, again, that would have traumatized me to a certain extent. But because I had forgiven that person and moved on, I was like, okay, good that you broke up, because I couldn't have stayed with a person who has cheated on me, and I think that is the journey from where the forgiveness started on. And I think the same thing, it was kind of interlinked, that I was not assuming. I was asked, and even when I was asking, I was not getting the right answer. I still waited. I think that patience was also there, and then when the patience develops and you forgive, the right things will just come to you at the right time. And it started from there, and then I think multiple times I've had such instances where patience, forgiveness, and then the right thing happening at the right time. It is it has just happened.
in that order.
Yeah.
It's a very big learning, Jaahanvi. Very, very big learning. Thank you for opening your heart out and making it so doable. Like we can, at least I can take away that, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. At least that's how I operate. Also, I'm just speaking for myself, and because forgiveness is not easy. I'll be honest with you. I've tried. Time has helped me forgive. Intent hasn't. There's a difference. So moving to your life, back to your life, you also mentioned that the same method you applied at a time in your life which was tough as a family. Somewhere around 2015, 2016, there was some upheavals. Do you want to throw some light on that?
Yeah. So, journey of forgiveness is not one time. Journey of working on yourself is not one time. It's not that once you do it, you are in some, I think, enlightenment stage, and then, nothing can touch you. No emotions can aggravate you. It can. And it happened again, I think, in 2000, between 2015-16. It was the toughest period for us as a family, because so between my parents also, they were again ups and downs. And then there was a time when it was an argument between my parents, and I jumped in. And because I had that anger, and I jumped in, and that made my father so angry, because he felt really disrespected. So he felt there was so much level of disrespect that he felt from two people coming at him, that he decided to, move out of the house for a while. And how much long it was, we didn't know that. So, but he just decided to, like, he was like, I can't stay in so much of disrespect, and he decided to move away. That was again a time when, as a family, we were going through a lot. And that was the same time when my mom was also, diagnosed with ovarian tumor. And so, of course, we had to take her to the hospital. She was admitted for a while. He used to come and stay also, but he didn't come back home. So, and of course, at that time, again, there was so much of resentment, there was so much of anger, so much of emotions that were happening within me. I don't know how it was for her, because I think I know how it was for me at that time. And at that time, I was also, like, in my spiritual practice, I was practicing Buddhism. I was really strong at that time, and I was really, again, I was continuously told by the people I was taking guidance from that, to work on myself. And I didn't know what it meant to work on myself at that time, because I was like, this is a situation between them, and he has left, and what is it that I have to work on myself in this? I didn't know. But, and every time I used to call him up to just check on him, how is he doing and everything, the end of the conversation would lead into an argument, and either me keeping the phone in that anger, or he keeping the phone in that anger. He used to cut the call, I would cut the call. But we could never have a calm conversation for a lot of months. And I think when I continuously worked on myself, I was chanting at that time, I continuously working on myself. There was a time when, I was chanting, and I was really thinking that I am going to pick up my phone and call him only when I am in a state, when I have so much control on myself, that whatever he says, I am not going to give in into my emotions. I'll stay calm, and I will be my best version. I will pick up my phone and dare to call only at that time. So I think it was 3.5 hours of really, I think that time I was chanting, and then I gathered courage that, okay, now I'm going to call. And something changed. It was after, I think, almost 9 months, that I had that conversation with him, when I picked up the call and I genuinely asked him, how is he doing and everything. And my mom had, I think, touch wood, she had, her tumor was benign, it was not cancerous, and, she was back home recovering. All of that had, like, the thing was taken care of. She was back home at that time, after 1.5, 2 months. And I called my father. I just asked him how is he doing, and with a lot of pure intent, asked him to come back. And in my heart, I knew that I forgive him, I forgive myself, for what happened that day that led to all this situation. I forgive every one of us in that situation and move on. Like, we all have good intent. Because something changed in me, 1 or 2 days later, he also came back.
Wow.
And
That's huge.
yeah, that, and then again, that was another point where I reinforced that
Reinforced.
how powerful forgiveness can be. And when you actually decide to forgive your own self, forgive everybody, and really with right intent move on, magic happens. So yeah, that was another time when this entire aspect of forgiveness came in my life very strongly.
That is, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's sounding very effortless, Jaahanvi, because you're saying it in hindsight. It's been a while, but I mean, hats off to you for even the moments that you, because as human beings, I think there is this frustrating feeling that comes where we want to place blame, and at that time, you may have told yourself, no, I'm going to work on myself. And then, like you said, then patience comes, and then the asking wala bit
Yeah.
comes. So I'm just glad that it worked out. It could have gone any other way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it takes one person to take that initiative,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So moving along, I know that you also mentioned that around the same time, I think, in the career. Was it the same time?
2 years later.
2 years later.
Yeah, 2 years later.
You were having a tough time at your job.
Yeah.
So what was happening there, and again, how did this help you?
Yeah. So you'll meet a lot of people in life, and in my career, I think 2-3 years later, like career was fine, and then when I switched jobs and I moved into consulting space, I was I was with an organization, with a company where uh, I was made to believe that I have limited capability and I have. Uh, this is my capability, and this is how much whatever I am getting in terms of money compensation is at par. So and I was very naive at that time, and for I think to good 2-3 years I believed, I didn't even take, I think I also, it was because I was naive, I also did not explore much. Because I think learning curve was there, so I continued to learn and I continued to contribute. But and then when I finally realized that the industry out there is very different and I need to move on, so I put in my papers. And when I put in my papers, I think during the notice period, it became the toughest time of my life, because that time, I saw the most nasty side of, the person I was reporting to, and my notice period was hell. So that time it was a challenge. But then again, I was cursing in my own heart. I was cursing the person so much. Even after I think moving on, when my notice period got completed, like I said, the journey of forgiveness is not that you're forgiven in the past, so you become an enlightened person and you can just quickly forgive and move on. It doesn't happen. Life throws up different challenges, and it takes a while for you to, accept and then move to the other part. So even after joining the new organization where I am today, I kept cursing the person. And of course, because the person was nasty, my full and final settlement also didn't come through for months. And again, I was like, it is up to the person. The person is behaving nasty, the person is behaving mean. They need to do the full and final settlement. There's nothing I can do in it. But then again, there was a reflection that what is it that I can do? It's about forgiving. Can I forgive the person for whatever the circumstances were there? Can I forgive? Because again, if I'm not forgiving, what is happening in my dreams, and because I'm cursing, it is reflecting in my health. I think my health started deteriorating exactly at that time, when my acidity issues started coming in. When first time I think my migraines also got, like, the frequency of my migraine increased. And I realized, shit, again, because you are cursing someone in your heart, because because you have some negative emotions to someone, it is impacting your health.
I have a question here, Jaahanvi. Again, from my understanding, and hopefully people who are watching and even here, how do you know, like, I don't even know how to frame this question. So let's say there were solid instances, as an example. Three solid instances where forgiveness helped you. But obviously you came to a point of choosing to forgive.
Yeah.
What made you come to that point? Like, how do you know, oh, this is affecting me? So is it like for example, you could be having a migraine for some other reason, right? What tells you in your body, or what tells you in your consciousness that it's time to forgive again? You know, like, what is that thing that happens? Is there something? What can we take away from that?
I think,
Or is it practice? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
but like how we go to the gym, so we know how our muscles are responding. Like, I know that okay, today I'm feeling this because I'm not worked out. Is it something similar because you're practicing consciously? That's why you know immediately that this is what. Is it that?
I think with time, yes, you're able to connect the dots. Plus, you know that this is one aspect of my life which is unresolved. Out of everything, maybe a lot of things are in place, but this is one aspect which is not in place. And that is, and something that has started happening, you're able to connect the dots with practice also, and because you've experienced it in the past. So only if you reflect with some
Yeah.
level of introspection and reflection, you can get there. Like, it's not really that difficult, but with some level of introspection and accepting that yes, this is it, you know, and your conscious does tell you that you are moving towards the right direction. This is connected.
That it does.
And once you do this, you will see the difference, and again, I think it happened. It happened. I chose to forgive. I chose to move on. I had so much of anger. I used to, like, my husband knows it. Like, I used to tell him that if I see the person's car, I wish I could, like,
Puncture?
do something.
Puncture the tires?
Like, do something. Harm in some way. Like, so there was so much of destruction mindset that was there. And I think, it is very natural. We are human. It does happen. But I was like, it will not help me. And I chose to forgive, and I chose to move on. I chose to accept that whether the full and final comes in or not, it doesn't make much difference to me. So let it go. And let it go to an extent that if I have the opportunity, if I have the ability to give an opportunity to the person to work with me, I'll give. And when that happened, the full and final also came through.
It's amazing.
Without me asking.
It's amazing.
So so it is, and that is the magic,
Yeah.
and again I could relive that magic, and that got reinstated. The power of forgiveness, the power of letting go, the power of moving on, and not holding back, letting go of anger, letting go of resentment, and choosing love for yourself, choosing love over all these things. I think that is how it happened.
It's amazing. It's amazing how you have mentioned quite massive life events of sorts.
Yeah.
That it makes it easier for everybody that's watching to immediately relate, because when, let's face it, all of us, we all go through slightly different with people. I mean, the characters are different and situations are different, but the issues are the same. Career, relationships, how we feel, emotions. So that's made it very easy for us to take away your articulation, And you mentioned your husband, Abhimanyu. By the way, for all those that are watching, he was also a speaker with Voice of Silence a few episodes ago. And you've been recently married. I'm saying recently because 2 years. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
How do you apply this in your marriage? This the aspect of forgiveness, and how is it taken by your better half? I would like to say, how is it taken by your partner? And does it help?
Yeah.
And what can we take away from that?
It's so powerful. I think it is on a daily basis. What I've really understood, and especially how I've practiced forgiveness. I think forgiveness and gratitude are both cousins. And you practice forgiveness, and you also, with forgiveness, you build in a lot of gratitude for things that are there in your life, and you're able to cherish things that actually matter so much, and you're able to let go of things that are not serving you. So, so in relationship and especially in marriage, I think it's an everyday thing where you trade off between things that are not serving you. For example, smallest of things that I think in the first year of marriage, I think that was the most foundation building for us. For me, a lot, because again, the kind of things I have seen, and not just in my like parents' marriage, for example, but many other people, many other relatives and other people that I've seen marriages not working out, and lot of ego issues coming in, lot of fights happening. I've grown up seeing so many things in so many people's lives. So I chose that, okay, what kind of marriage am I going to build for myself? And it was so I think human that at times you will have resentment towards your partner, that why is he not doing this, why doesn't he understand this, why it is so basic, why is it not coming? And because that resentment in action turns out to be taunts, turns out to be sarcastic statements that you give away to your partner, and that doesn't help. That just doesn't help. And I realized that in the first month of our marriage itself, and I realized that this is coming because of something that I'm not letting go, and forgiveness is about letting go, forgive and letting go, that okay, this is his journey, this is my journey, now we've come together. Instead of being sarcastic, say out whatever you feel with lot of pure intent, not from the intent of taunting the other person, or making the other blaming, or making the person feel bad, or putting them down, but because you have to together go up. You don't have to put yourself up and put the other person down. You have to together build. So for that your statements have to change. For that to happen, you have to let go of your own conditioning. For that you have to let go of things that agar ye idhar ka idhar bhi, and you will keep it, nothing wrong will happen, so it's okay, and it will eventually fall into place. So I think that is how we've built our marriage of forgiveness and gratitude. And I've also let go of lot of things. I think forgiveness is not just for your partner, but also forgiveness for yourself. Forgiving yourself for things that you weren't able to do, things that you've made, mistakes that you've made in your life, and letting go of that. And now you're no longer that person who makes those mistakes. So don't associate yourself with the same person. You're not that same person, you've grown. So accept who you are today and build on that. So I think that is the journey that I have really worked on in marriage in the last 2 years.
That's a lot to take for a lot of married people. I'll speak for myself again. That's a lot to take away from you, believe me. And as a person who's, like I said at the beginning also, during the introduction, as a person who's older in years, older than you, I feel this understanding is way deeper, and there's so much to learn from you. And I mean, I'll immediately apply it, because, like even the preliminary introduction, the conversation that I have with all my speakers, in that also, when she was saying all this, I couldn't relate with so much, because maybe I didn't ever understand it in this way, the way you explain, and it's very valuable. And the way, and another thing, Jaahanvi, to you personally, thank you for being so honest in saying things like, I was angry, I felt like doing this. This is exactly the intent of the show. Where you're saying, I felt like, harming the car or whatever, I had that dream. You could have easily just gone on the other side and said, yeah, then forgiveness kind of became easier. You could do that.
Yeah.
But your humanness makes it, I think that's what's making it so relatable. So it's a thank you for that. That's a very big learning, believe me. So now we're going to wrap up. It's the end of the whole episode. Anything that you would like to say as a final voice of silence to society at large, for anybody that can take away immediately or in the long run, and for anybody whose mindset could change based on your story?
I think before I move to the voice of silence, also I want to really give big credit to my sister, because a lot of things that that came into my life was through her. So I think getting introduced to Buddhism, that actually was a turning point for me, was through her. A lot of big things that have come in my life, I have me being able to speak up my mind, and because I think I saw her also working so hard on herself, like, on her spiritual journey. I kind of also saw that, okay, what can I do? Maybe I didn't do exactly same things, but then I saw, and I think that had a lot of impact on me. So I think a, a majority of how I've been able to work on myself, things have started coming from her in my life. So yeah, that's one very important thing. Coming to my voice of silence, I think I'll reinstate the fact that gratitude and forgiveness are two very powerful virtues that if we practice on a daily basis, and again, even I am a work in progress. I won't say I am a very sane person who can, like, just forgive. Somebody hurts me, somebody would do wrong things, and I'll just be okay and forgive at one go itself. It may not happen, but I would know that eventually I will. Maybe
Wow.
I will take little lesser time this time to
Yeah.
forgive and move on, and learn from it, and move away from resentment and anger. But anger does no good to you. It will only harm you in ways that you can't even think of. So it will harm your relationships, it will harm your relationship with yourself, your relationship with people you really like would want to hold on to, and relationships that you really want to nurture. So always choose love over all these emotions. I think as long as we choose love, we will choose to forgive our own self, we will choose to forgive others, and I think life can be very beautiful in that way. Will not be very, like, I think it will continue to have its own ups and downs, but then you will be able to really enjoy smallest of things in life as long as you choose love. So
All right. I think with that, we can actually wrap it up. We choose love then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.